Greetings, fellow book lovers, and welcome back to Colin's Corner. If you are a returning viewer, this setup might look a little bit different to you guys. I, with the help of my wonderful wife, took basically a whole day to copy and paste Colin's Corner from downstairs in our living room to upstairs in a spare bedroom in order to improve the quality of the content and to also kind of give myself a better environment to create the vibe that I was sort of going for. So you have to let me know down in the comments if you guys like the new setup. With that out of the way, guys, let's begin. Today we will be doing a review of The Way of Edan. This is the first book in the Edan trilogy by Philip Chase. Now, if you are on BookTube, especially if you are on my channel, I probably do not need to mention to you who Philip Chase is. He is a pillar of the BookTube community, and I've been really enjoying following along his updates on getting this book out to the public. So what is it about? The main plot of the story is centered around a holy war, which is a concept and a plot line that is very new to me as a reader. I was very interested to see how I was going to end up feeling about this. Torland is the main capital of the realm of Eormenland, and from there, the supreme priest Bledla is working in conjunction with the king of Torland to essentially wage holy war on the rest of the kingdoms surrounding Torland. Now, their main goal is to convert everybody to the Way, which is essentially a monotheistic religion that brings with it the promise of an eternal kingdom. The priests of the Way are ruthless and unforgiving in their conversion methods and are quickly generating many enemies for themselves across Eormenland. Down in the southwest corner of Eormenland, we are introduced to another of our characters that we follow, whose name is Sakara. Now, she is the heir to an island kingdom called Astralad, and she's essentially handed the mission of trying to acquire a very powerful weapon for the resistance, and the success of the resistance hinges heavily upon whether or not she is successful in acquiring said weapon. And the last main plot line that we are introduced to brings us to the northwest corner, I believe, of Eormenland, to a place called The Mark, where we are introduced to who I believe is our main character, Dayraven. Now, he is pretty much living a simple life. He's got a beautiful woman that he is planning to wed soon. He's a trained fighter of the Mark, but there's not really been any conflict in his lifetime, so he hasn't really had to use any of his skills that he's learned. His father is a guy whose reputation as a formidable soldier kind of precedes him wherever he goes. So Dayraven's kind of got to deal with, being the son of one of the best soldiers that the Mark has ever produced. And so he's more or less just living a normal life, fairly uneventful, until the priests in Torland drum up their agenda, and Dayraven suddenly finds himself caught in the middle of all of this mayhem. Next, I want to talk a little bit about the writing style. So Chase is a medievalist with special interests in Old Norse and English mythologies. He also teaches English at a college level. I believe he teaches college writing, and he has also taught a fantasy novel course in the past. So this is somebody who is very well read, and not only that, has the skills and capabilities to teach a lot of the books that we know and love. So I was very interested to see what his writing style was going to be, because like all of us, I'm sure that he's got people that he looks up to in the genre. And I would say that this book felt like a very beautiful blend of a traditional tone with definitely some familiar tropes, yet was still told with a modern voice. Chase has many inspirations that he proudly wears on his sleeve. However, while the inspirations may be clear, Chase has managed to create his own style and a unique authorial voice, which impressed me greatly. The Way of Edan contains some familiar fantasy races, such as a variation on dwarves, elves, trolls, some other monsters, and of course humans. However, Chase has created his own personal take on some of these races that may surprise the reader, but not in a bad way. This is an epic fantasy, so let's talk a little bit about the magic that exists in Eormenland. It is called the Gift, and the Gift is essentially a mind magic, and what a user of the gift is able to do is essentially take over the mind of another being. And this does come at a cost, as whatever the being taken over feels physically and emotionally, the user of the gift feels also. So I thought it provided some very thought provoking situations for the characters in Chase's book. I think that this would be considered a soft magic system. It is not heavily explained. It leaves a lot up to the reader in terms of, analyzing and trying to guess and figure out how this magic works. How do you acquire it? Are you born with it? Is it something that can be learned? Is it something that can be handed down through family lines? So there's not too much that we figure out about it in this first book. Needless to say, it was very unique. I've never read a magic system that included empathy in this way, and I'm very excited to learn more about this and where it comes from. Next, I want to talk a little bit about the characters. So, like I mentioned earlier, Dayraven seems to me to be the main character of the story. However, he is the character and the plot line that I am least interested in this first book. Dayraven did not grab me very much. The storyline surrounding him was a little bit more interesting than him as a character, which is fine. It reminded me of, some other classic main protagonists that I've read before, and he was more or less just an ordinary guy that got thrust into a crazy situation and had to make do with, what he had as to the best of his ability. Sakura's storyline was very intriguing to me. Unfortunately, we did not get as much of Sakura as I wanted in this first book, but I have a feeling that we're going to learn a lot more about her and, how she is going to leave her impact on this holy war. To me, the most exciting characters in this first book in the trilogy were the Supreme Priest Bledla and the other priests surrounding him. Bledla is an absolutely sinister man, and he's got an agenda that he will not allow anybody or anything to stop. And there was another priest that really, really drew me in, and that was, I believe his name was Joramon, and he's also very evil, in a albeit slightly different way than Supreme Priest Bledla. He's got some hidden agendas too, but I am very interested to see what kinks he is going to throw into, everybody's plan. Lastly, I just want to touch on some themes that stuck out to me over the course of this first book, The Way of Edan. So, obviously, as the plot summary will reveal to you, the one of the biggest themes is religion, that Chase is exploring in this first book. So he is using religion to ask some really interesting questions. So, what rights does religion give people? Do people have a say in what gods they support, or is that up to the realm that is controlling them, the leaders of the realm? Uh, what lines does religion allow somebody to cross? What actions would be considered justifiable in the name of religion? These are some things that are very heavily explored, and they're not obvious answers. The characters that believe in the religions in this book, especially the Way, are very convincing, even though they may not always be doing the nicest things to people. The way that they are written, the way that these characters are written, are very believable, and it's hard to fault them in what they are doing, even though it might be some horrific acts. It's displayed to the reader in a way that we can empathize with them. We can see where they're coming from, at least. Maybe overarching all of these themes and kind of tied into a lot of them as well, that stuck out to me was the theme of power. Gaining power, keeping power, spreading control over the realm. This is not a theme that is foreign to fantasy, obviously. However, Chase is able to create a very unique display of power and how it affects the characters in Eormenland and how power drives some of these characters to do some pretty unthinkable things. My overall thoughts on this first book, The Way of Edan, is that I really enjoyed it. In many ways, it is Chase infusing a breath of fresh air into a traditional fantasy story, and he's done it very well. And another side note, just to kind of end things, is I want to mention that this is the first self-published book that I think I have read, definitely the first that I have covered on the channel. And I just want to say I was impressed, thoroughly impressed with the quality of the physical quality of the book, with the writing, with the map, with the cover design. If I didn't know any better, if I just picked this book up and read it, I would have easily thought that this was a traditionally published book. And this has got me extremely excited to dig deeper and explore the world of self-published books, because this was a tremendous first experience with self-published books for me. And I think that, Chase has been working for many years on this book, polishing his product, and he has delivered a polished product. And I'm very, very happy with my experience with The Way of Edan. That's going to do it for me today, guys. If you're still here, I want to thank you so much for hanging out. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like. And if you're enjoying the content on the channel so far, please do consider subscribing because it helps tremendously. I hope you guys are all enjoying what you're reading, and remember, you're always welcome in Colin's Corner.